Sherilyn here with Joyly Studios, and we are live with Dale Halaway. Thank you for joining us, Dale. How are you today?
Oh, I'm doing fine. Thank you. My pleasure to be with you.
You look great, by the way.
Thank you.
How are you doing during this pandemic?
Well, I'm doing actually good. But for me, the whole quarantine thing, as I've said to a number of, whenever I show up on my online classes, for me, quarantine is like kind of my lifestyle. Not that I specifically quarantine myself, but I've lived so much in, silence, quiet. I've made peace with all of that. So for me, I'm sure it's a little bit easier than it might be for some.
Yes, well, thank you for all you're doing to educate everyone that's been tuning into your classes. I've been following you, and it's just absolutely amazing that you're available to help people through this, because people are stuck and they're suffering. So yes. I'm just going to pull up my notes here because I have a whole series of things to talk about. I hope you're ready.
I'm ready. Let's do this.
Okay, so first of all, I am really excited to launch Joyly, of course, on May 30th. I have a whole community that we're building around joy. So I have this belief that each human is good. I have a belief that everyone has an innate goodness and a thread of joy that runs through them. And I believe that no matter what's thrown at them, even through our ups and downs, and I broke my nose when I was 8 years old, and a lot of tragedy and trauma through the years, working through all of that, like even in the pain and suffering, I believe that there's joy. So Dale, I would love to hear your opinion of what joy is, especially now.
Yes, so very similar to yours. I might experience it or see it just a little differently in the context where joy is on the emotional spectrum scale. It's one of the highest emotions. So the way I experience it is it's always accessible to us. But with that said, not everybody accesses it. And most certainly not everybody accesses it on a regular basis. Partly because they get caught up, swallowed up, snagged, snafu'd in the lower spectrum of the emotional scale. They get sometimes way too caught up in their anger or their fear or their apathy or jealousy or insecurity or whatever that might look like for each individual. And when that happens, especially when they get stuck or snafu'd, then it's like they're temporarily cut off from that higher emotion that's available. And of course, as you know, it's not just an emotion. It is an energy. It is another dimension, if you will. And so, and of course, the other thing that I often teach when it comes to joy is this is available to each and every one of us.
Yes.
However, we've got to, my way of teaching this would be you've got to earn it. And when I say earn it, what that really means, you've got to embody it. You've got to somehow find a way to be able to elevate yourself to the point of where joy actually exists inside of you, as in that spectrum. And then you've got to be able to bring it down, because that joy vibration it's sitting higher than where you are right now physically, meaning that there's a lot more to you than what you see when you stand in front of the mirror and you just simply get your physical reflection. And this is another been missing piece, and I would say even on purpose, meaning people have been taught to disconnect from this piece that I'm referring to right now, where there's much more to you than that of what you see when you're standing in front of a mirror and just simply getting that physical reflection back. So, and of course, what happens over time, people get really conditioned. I used to be one of them, where you think that's who you are. There are people right now on the planet, believe it or not, that still believe that when they look at their physical body, that's who they are. And it just simply isn't the truth. And of course, you only really know that as you start to elevate within inside of yourself and you start to access these, shall we say, higher aspects, higher dimensions, or like in light of what we're talking about right now around joy. Joy is of a higher vibration. It has an emotional counterpart to it, or an emotional texture to it. And so even though it's available to each and every one of us, because it's somewhere inside of us, but not always inside of the physical form, meaning it's above us. It's above our physical form.
Interesting.
And so we've got to rise to it. Now, this would be for the people who really are committed or intending to embody joy, to where, like people often ask me, well, Dale, do you ever have like an unhappy moment? And the way I answer it is, it's not that it's so much unhappy. It's, yes, I do have moments that are challenging. I have moments that have me feeling sad or feeling sometimes even angry, but not from the perspective of energy that's stuck inside of me anymore.
Right.
It's rather from the perspective of what's going on in our physical reality. So if there's something happening, you say to one of my children, where somebody's moving in aggressively and they don't back off, I might find myself getting a little angry about that. And then if appropriate, I'll step in and interject, period. So, but that's the anger that's in the current moment, right? Because all the emotions are here to serve us in some way. However, what often happens, and I include myself in this category from way back when, is that, again, people get caught up in the lower emotions, then they suppress them. And once they suppress them, they forget that there's all these higher emotions that are also available for them at any time. They're accessible, but it's not just being able to access them, ultimately, in my world, or at least what I teach, is that we want to earn these emotions. We want to earn these dimensions, or also known as we want to embody them. We want to bring that of a higher vibrational frequency. We want to bring it down into our physical vessel. For when it's in our physical vessel, what that now means is the underlining tone of our life is now always joy. So I can now be going through something in my day-to-day reality that might even challenge me a little bit. It might even activate me a little bit. But underneath that, I have immediate access to that tone of joy. So I might go through the day. Sometimes people say to me, or they ask me, do you ever get drained at the end of the day? Because when they're around me, they see this amount of energy that I'm always putting out, right, in my service to others. And I say, yes, I get exhausted, especially when I'm doing a 6-day long training, right? I do get exhausted, but my kind of exhaustion is always a happy exhaustion.
Yeah.
When I'm exhausted at the end of the day, I feel really good about what just happened during the day, versus others who they get more of a depleting, draining type exhaustion, where the following morning they have a hard time getting out of bed because the day before they were drained, they were depleted of energy. Big difference there.
I love that. That really puts a nice frame around the day when you're exhausted. It's like, it doesn't have to be stress. You don't have to be up all night thinking about it. I was thinking about when you were talking, based on the fact that we all have that brokenness that I talked about. Mine was a physical brokenness. And all through these years, every time I would look in the mirror, I would give all the credit to the physical appearance. And so I never allowed joy to come out. So real quickly, what would you say to people who are maybe not able even to look into the mirror and see and feel any kind of joy right now, especially now? Tip 1, tip 2, tip 3, real quick.
Tip 1 would be get somebody in your corner.
Yes.
That knows more than you do in relation to themselves.
Okay.
In other words, they know how to work through whatever it is that you might be snagged on or snafu'd on. Usually it has something to do more on an emotional level for most people. And because of these uncertain times, so to speak, that we're currently in, right, the odds are people are just going to get activated on an emotional level. And then depending on what they do with their emotions, depending what kind of relationship, how conscious their relationship is to their emotions, all of that determines whether or not they possibly get snafu'd on one of those emotions that get activated as a result of what's going on in their physical reality. And of course, if that happens, then there's nothing better than having somebody in your corner or something in your corner, even like as an ongoing program, like a support program,
right,
that's specifically designed to catch you when you're stuck.
Love it.
So that program or that teacher or coach or mentor or good friend or guide, or maybe it's your employer or whoever it might be, can help to pull you out of it. So you don't have to stay in there for too awful long.
Okay. Do you have a tip 2 and tip 3, or do you want to leave it there? That was a really good one.
let's come back to it
Okay.
as we go a little further, because obviously there'll be all kinds of tips in the
Yes,
context of our
exactly.
conversation here
Good
today
point.
that
Good
people
point.
can use.
So I'm
Yes.
going to ask you. So by the way, I might pop off the screen. So if you see me pop off, just keep talking, because I think people want to look at you talk instead of me. So you won't hear me, but I'll pop back in when it's time. So if I ask a question
Okay.
and that happens, just keep going. So
Okay.
the next part, what I want to do, Dale, is really go through something with you. So specifically, we're in the process of creating. I don't know if you can see this chair behind me, but it's it's all about getting people to find the joy, the thread, if you will. So if I could do a little joy stacking with you, I would absolutely love that. So would you mind closing your eyes if you feel comfortable doing that? And
I do.
Thank you. And I'm going to do what I said, which is pop off the screen so it's just you. So give me 1 second with that. Oh, nope, then you won't be able to hear me. Never mind. Okay, so we're going to do some box breathing. So just breathe in for the count of 5. Hold it for the count of 5. And release for the count of 5. And I'm going to have you do that one more time. And while you're doing that, if you could think of one of the very first joyful experiences that you've had in your life. So again, breathe in for 5. Hold. And breathe out. And then maybe we could stack on that joy moment, if you don't mind, and maybe move on a little bit further and find 1 or 2 other moments in your life that were joyful. So let's do one more deep breath of 5 in. Hold. And release. You can open your eyes when you're ready. Can you share one of those amazing moments with us, Dale? One moment of joy?
I've got a few of them.
Yeah.
So the first one that popped up for me was someone that entered my life at a time when I really needed someone like this to enter into my life. I was 19 years of age at the time, and just hearing his voice on the telephone. That day I was out in my my parents' backyard painting their fence, and this call came through, and I went to take the call. And back in those days, this is long before we ever had a cell phone. So I went in the house and picked up the phone and said hello. And right from the moment this man started speaking, it lit me up like a Christmas tree inside. I didn't recognize at the time, but what was happening, I was in a full-on recognition of someone that was very much like a soulmate, and more specifically, a healthy soulmate, a vibrant soulmate, a divine soulmate. So even though he was a man, I'm not gay, but neither was he. He's no longer with us anymore. But the energy, the connection was just so immediate, and it was so positive, and it was so joyous. And so we spoke on the phone that very first time for maybe 20 minutes. We set up an appointment for the following day. And back in those days, I used to wear a cowboy hat and had holy jeans, holy as in holes in my jeans. And it was kind of like a cowboy. I grew up in a cow town, so to speak, back in Canada at the time. And so I walk in the following day, and of course, what's happening, I'm about to be interviewed for a position with the company that he was leading. And once again, I walk into the office, and that fast, it's like I just was so lit up and filled with so much joy. I didn't do anything other than what I just said. And anyhow, that became the doorway into what turned out to be one of the best friend relationships that, quite frankly, I've ever experienced. And that went on for the next 10 years of my life. Both of us became so enriched just by our partnership.
Nice.
We had a business partner. We went into business together, and our businesses just thrived. I mean, it was just an incredible time in my life. And if he was here, he would say the exact same thing. And we were known by a lot of people. When we showed up in a conference, when we showed up in a large room where there were hundreds of people, they were all inspired by our interaction, like every single time.
I can feel it.
over the
I can
years.
feel it here. I mean, I can feel the energy just coming
Yeah.
from you, from the
Yeah.
power that you created, not to yourselves, but but the two of you sparked for everybody else. So that's
Oh, yes.
amazing. Let's talk about the thread of joy that maybe went into the next one. Was there another thing that popped in, and was there any golden little thread that you could
Yeah.
connect the two with, if you don't mind
No,
sharing?
oh, no, absolutely. There was. The second one that became equally joyous was the birthing of my daughter. I was in the room that day, and again, this goes back to a time when, for the most part, that wasn't even allowed. And but there were complications going on with her mother at the time, and so they allowed me to go in. And now I had to dress in that moon suit, or at least I looked like I was in a moon suit. I didn't mind at all because I was just so incredibly excited, as I'm sure a lot of parents are when they're birthing or they're in that process of meeting their child on a physical level for the very first time. And so, anyhow, the birthing happens, and uniquely enough, I was the first one to actually hold her in my arms because I was there even beyond her mother. And so, she was born, she came into this world, she was right away put on her mother's tummy, and the umbilical, they left the umbilical cord attached for a few moments. And then when they disconnected that, the nurses, well, of course, it was contagious. My joy that I was experiencing in physical form was so contagious. The nurses, the doctor, they were all moved by this experience. And so I'll remember this forever. One of the nurses, as she's going down to pick up my daughter, or this little body, if you will, at the time, she kind of looks up at me, and without saying a word, I knew exactly what she was saying. Do you want to hold her? And I'm like, it was like a god bump just thinking about that day again. And anyhow, so they right away put her in my arms. I ended up holding her for 30 minutes, which I learned later, at least back in those days, that was very unusual. And to the point where they almost had to pry her out of my arms, lovingly, mind you. Yes. But they were just really moved by this thing that was going on between her and I. Yeah. And again, it was just very joyous.
All right, that's beautiful. So do you see a thread between the two at all? Is there some connection that you have between your friend and your daughter's birth?
Well, he became her adopted uncle.
Oh.
And he just basically worshiped the ground she walked on.
That's beautiful.
There were times, I remember one, it's kind of funny. Again, he and I were very, very close. And so we lived in two different cities at the time. And he flew in. We had been doing some work together for a couple of days, and my daughter was with her mother. Her mother and I had split up at this point. And but I was to go pick her up. It was a Friday afternoon, which was my agreement with her mother. I'd pick her up Friday and then keep her until Monday morning. So I had to go pick her up Friday. So I had to break from this business meeting that we had been in for a couple of days early. I left, and then another one of my dearest friends, he went ahead and took the original friend that I told you about. His name was Ernie, and put him in the car and said, let's go up to Dale's place. He's taking care of his daughter right now. So they did. They came in, and then, of course, we were going to have dinner at my place. But while they walked in, I was bathing my daughter. And at the time, she was 2 or maybe 3, somewhere in that age. And she had pooped in the tub.
Okay.
And so there were these poops floating around the tub, like you see in the movies.
That's beautiful.
And so anyhow, Ernie walks in. He says, "Where's Randy? Where's Randy?" I said, "Well, I'm bathing her. Can I see her? Can I see her? Can I see her?" Because he's, again, just so naturally excited. Yeah. And so I said, "Well, she's in the tub." And so he walked in there. Well, when he saw her, and then, of course, the poop, he laughed so hard. Right. And, of course, she was, as always, when he walked in the room, she just lit up like a Christmas tree as well. It was somebody that just became very important to her in the earlier part of her life. So that power that you have with Ernie and Randy, and probably the trifecta, the three of you, like, is there something in your life that's happening that's like that now? And if not, how could that energeticness that you had with that relationship continue on now? Well, that's a great question because I had that, and then I had a few other things that happened because this is now all in my 20s that were all very dynamic. And again, the tonality of it all, underneath it all, was this joy that was happening. But back in those days, I did not understand myself the way I understand myself today, and I clearly hadn't begun my path of healing myself.
Right.
I mean, I was very much engaged in personal development back then, but personal development, at least in my world, is very different than personal transformational healing.
Right. Which
And
we want to
so,
get to real quick.
yeah.
We
So, okay. So, but anyhow, so I went through that period, and it was just so exciting. And then I did step into my transformational journey, and now many years, actually a few decades have now passed.
Yes.
And now what you just asked me is literally in process of recreating itself again. Only now it's with different individuals.
That's
so yes.
That's beautiful. And so the execution of that, like can you just show us, like a lot of people don't recognize it when it's happening, like, oh, wow. One of my favorite moments was I owned a bar and grill, and I was, dancing in the bar. I got people out to dance with me. I was giving beads to everyone.
Yeah.
It was just a really vibrant time. And the same thing's kind of happening now with me, with Joyly. It's like, I feel like I'm injecting myself in the same way by asking people to come and dance with me in joy. So what is that, real quick, what does that relationship look like now? How is it transformed, and what is it showing up like now?
Well, like I said, it's just now beginning.
Okay.
So and it begins with obviously ourselves.
Right.
So with me, I'm back in a similar place in relation to myself and my life to where I was when I was in my 20s. The big difference is because of the transformational path that I've been on and my own spiritual awakening, if you will, I'm in a very different place in relation to myself than I was all those years ago. I'm in a very different relationship to the divine, to God, to the universe, to spirit today than I ever was back in those days. So, but that has been the benefit, if you will, or the benefits, the rewards of having walked the path that I've been walking for the last few decades. And so now I'm coming out on the other side of all of that. And as I am now, just now noticing that what I had going on in light of what we've just spoken about here today is now returning. It's returning in a little different form, but it's returning. It's returning with a couple of individuals in my life. It's returning with what it is that I'm currently stepping into in my life. Back then I was very much involved in serving people. It was a little different than how I serve people today, but it was something that was very important to me back then. Today, it's not only equally important, actually, it's even more important because I recognize the way I'm serving people today has even a deeper, or greater, or larger significance than that of the way I was serving people back in my 20s. And so, as always, if you're able to get through your life experience when these types of things happen for you at soul level, you come back to where you started.
Yes.
The difference is when you come back to when you started, you truly recognize the magnificence. You recognize all the beauty. You recognize all the perfection.
Yes.
That was even there back then.
Yes.
It just back then, at least for me, I couldn't see any of it. In fact, if anything, back then, my biggest question was, because I was always being interviewed, like on television or radio shows, because I was so successful, and people would ask me, like, why do you do it? How do you do it? You didn't even go to university. You don't have a college degree. It doesn't make any sense. Somebody as young as you to succeed in the way that you are. And my number one answer, actually my only answer, quite frankly, back then was you just got to work hard. Yeah. And I was working hard, but the truth was it wasn't just working hard. I've met 1,000 people over the years who work as hard, sometimes even harder than I ever did, and they're not successful.
Right.
Yeah. They struggle. And yet for me, so needless to say, I was kind of shallow inside of myself because there were issues going on back then in relation to me and inside of me I wasn't even yet aware of. Yeah. I hadn't been broken open yet to any of this stuff at that point. But that's what I'm now returning back to.
Yeah.
So
Thank you for sharing that. That's beautiful. I can feel it from you. I can absolutely feel it. And the cool thing about that is, I don't know about you, but I'm noticing that once I'm tapping in and like the exclamation point is on it, like you just said, like now it's duplicatable. Now that level of joy can tap into my family and my husband and my friends and even my walks outside are more delightful and, you know, things like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Any comment on that?
Well, you know, it's interesting as as you know, I have the ability to dial into people.
Yes.
Not just with what they sound like or what they're saying,
yes.
right? But I can already see the change that you've experienced since the last time we saw each other.
Yes, yes. We should preface that with the fact that I came in here in October for 1 month to follow a dream called a red dream, by the way. Remember that? I was taking dance lessons and things like that. And our good friend Kim said, I can never really say her last name right, Kim Figueroa.
You just said it.
All right, there we are. And she hopefully is listening today. Sorry, Kim. Yes. I love you. I interviewed her last week, but she invited me to your.
She's smiling. She's laughing right now.
Of course she is. She invited me to your training like the evening before, and I'm like, yeah, I'm going. She's like, you're going? I said, yeah, I'm going. But that weekend was truly amazing. So thank you for that. I remember writing down all the stuff about money and all the stuff about, you know, stress and just having a campfire with it. I mean, it was a really powerful weekend. So thank you for that.
You're welcome.
That was good. So we'll get back to your classes in a minute. So the conversation today is about spiritual wellness. And I didn't even prepare a bunch of questions, but because over the last 8 weeks, we've been talking about the 8 dimensions of wellness. I wonder from a spiritual transformation perspective, if you could quickly comment maybe 1 or 2 sentences on each of the topics, and then we'll continue on with our spiritual conversation. So the first week was emotional. When it comes to spiritual transformation, what could you say to that? I'm putting you on the spot. Yeah. I know you can. I know, but
I'm going for a couple of days on this one.
I know, but we want to get to the heart of the matter.
Yes, and I will, and that's because this one is so significant.
Please.
This is the one that ends up driving a lot of the choices that we make on a physical level, and in many cases, with a lot of people, it's driving it more from their unconscious. And here's why, and it has to do with what I'm going to offer as a tip here on this particular dimension. And that is, it has to do with that relationship that we're currently in to that of our own feelings or emotions. So everybody has the opportunity, not everybody has risen up to it, but everybody has the opportunity to rise up to the level of emotional fitness or emotional mastery. That would be the highest level, emotional mastery. Now, I've never met anybody that can go from 0 to 100 overnight. This is usually a pretty big feat, if you will, or a major project to take on. But it starts with checking in with yourself. And on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being you're really there, 1 being you're just kind of getting started, when you consider for a moment a relationship that you currently have to that of your feelings, how strong, how conscious would you say that relationship is in current time? Is it a 10 out of 10, meaning you're very conscious of your feelings, you have a very dynamic relationship to that of your feelings, meaning when they pop up, you're there with them. You're there with them, you're working with them, you're learning from them, you're processing them, you're releasing them or resolving them, whatever it is that's right for you to be doing. Or are you maybe closer to a 1 in current time? Now, this is really important. You be brutally honest with yourself. Whatever that is, because everybody has an answer to this question. Everybody. If I'm in front of 100 people and I'm teaching for 4 days, right? And I start asking some of these questions, I assure you to this question here, you'll be amazed at how few people in the room can actually say they're closer to a 10 when they're being really honest. But what's so cool here is everything starts with awareness. As we say, awareness is powerful, but in this case, it has to do with the awareness to that of the relationship that you're currently in with the part of you that houses all the feelings. So when we're going back before, and we were talking about that spectrum of emotions. So if we want to get better at accessing joy for real, not the Pollyanna joy, we haven't talked about that, but for the real joy, the authentic joy, the joy that you feel, it lights you up, it changes your life, and you know it, you get the results that are reflecting back to you on this. When you have that going on, then needless to say, whoever that person is, they've done a fair amount of work in this area on an emotional level. And more specifically, their relationship to their feelings is a relationship that's more conscious, it's more, or it's healthier, it's more present.
Yes.
You know, when my feelings don't show up, I don't run away from them anymore.
Yeah.
I go right into them. It's kind of like, you know, sometimes that's how people are in their relationships with people, right? Sometimes as soon as the stuff hits the fan, they exit.
Yeah.
They run for the hills.
Out.
Well, it's the same thing that I've seen over and over again with people, and not just men, by the way. Everybody right away assumes that this is more for men. That is not true. You know, my audiences, or, you know, in my seminars, you know, it's right kind of down the middle. We get, you know, about 50% women and 50% men. And I see a lot of the same challenges with men that you see even with women, who you would think would be a lot better with their feelings. And in some cases they are, no doubt about it. But then there's other elements that come into play that at some point start to show or reveal to themselves, to the women that is, holy cow, I never even saw that, which is then currently snagging them in their relationship to their own feelings as well.
Yes, and I just think that taking classes like yours and just paying attention to these topics, I think help improve every day. I remember when I was at your class even 6 months ago, like I remember just getting so bogged down by everybody else's stuff, right? Like I couldn't even have a relationship because there was no being present. Like, right, I don't know if you notice the difference, but it's night and day when you actually do what you said in the beginning, which is practice. Like it takes time to evolve. Yeah.
Well, and you know, the other thing there, Cheryl, is let's say you're a parent, and more specifically, you're a younger parent, and you've got young kids. If you haven't figured this out yet, the odds are you're going to project the feelings that you've been running away from onto the psyche of your young children.
Oh my gosh.
And no matter how you cut it, that is not going to land in a healthy place. Maybe not right away. It might take years. But then at some point, as the child becomes a teenager, that's where we start to see the teenagers. And I experience this every day with a lot of the people I work with that are parents of teenagers. And they constantly come to me and say, Dale, I don't understand this. Like, why are they treating me this way? Well, if we trace it back into the earlier days when they were being raised by you, the parents, we can start to see where we were possibly missing the boat, so to speak. Because our relationship to our feelings wasn't that healthy, at least yet.
Yes, very important to pay attention to the emotional wellness right now. Okay, we have 6 more. We're going to pop through. Ready? I gave you a lot of time on emotional because I know that's your top priority to talk about. The next one is economic and financial, as far as spiritual transformation, especially right now.
Well, this is a big thing. As you know, this is what's really causing a lot of uncertainty right now. I might even say on purpose with people economically. So, you know, the best thing you can do, actually, there's a couple things. The first thing is find a healthy strategy that helps you to calm down. As you might remember, Cheryl, I don't think you've ever been through my Money Mastery class, but I have a whole body of work on talk about our relationship to money. And one of the things that often happens when their fears get activated, or when their lower belief systems, say, for example, a belief system of scarcity gets activated. And right now, this stuff is activating all around us. There's no way it cannot activate because of the economic uncertainty that's now come upon us, and obviously will continue at least for the next little while. So the first thing is we want to calm down. Why calming down is so important? Because in our beingness, we're always broadcasting out energy or frequency. It's like a radio station. We're always broadcasting something out. And so when it comes to money, money is also an energy. I know to some people this is going to sound kind of strange, but money in of itself, even though we look at it, we see the dollar bill and whatever currency we're looking at, and some of us think that's what it is, but it's not. That's the manifestation of an energy, which we call money. When you understand this, or your understanding is deepened, or your awareness is truly lifted, and you learn how to access money from a point of energy, the reality is you can have as much as you need, as much as you genuinely need. You might not get rich right away, but the bottom line is you're no longer living in scarcity because you've got this dynamic relationship with this energy we call, or I at least call money in this context. And so, but all of that it literally falls on our ability to be able to calm down internally and then stay calm when it comes to making our choices that are most right for us to make in light of our financial economy, our own personal financial economy, that is.
I love that. And since you're training back in October, want to hear a little story of what the impact was?
Yes,
I actually
please.
took that idea of energy, and there's a mountain outside of my condo called Lone Mountain. I don't know if you're familiar with it. You probably are not too far away from here. You're in Vegas right now, right? Yeah. So anyway, the idea of why was money like always up on this pedestal? Why was it always so far away? Why wasn't it never inside and in my heart? So every time I go out for my walk every morning, I transform the mountain into gold, as in money. So I just picture it like flowing all through my veins and just radiating inside of me. And then I bring a tiny little pebble home. So now I have hundreds of rocks over there that I'll give back when I leave. But the idea was, it's just a thing. Money is just a thing. You need to ask for it or not ask for it, but call it in, just like you would call in a relationship or call in a new idea or whatever it is. So as soon as I put it on an equal plane, it became reality.
That is a wonderful story, but I would also say to the viewers here right now, you're also pretty good at receiving as well. So it's calling it in is the masculine. Receiving it, allowing it to come in is the feminine.
Yes.
And so this is another area that I see happen a lot with people when they lose their point of center, when they lose their own stability, inner stability inside, and then their fears get activated around their relationship to money, their experience with money. Then one of two things always happens. They become too aggressive in trying to pull it in. And when you become too aggressive, you're now in a pushing energy, you actually push it away.
Yeah.
Or they're good at calling it in, but it comes in because they have controlling issues inside. They end up energetically pushing it away because their doorway is not open to just simply be able to receive it into their life. And one of the ways in how this shows up on a practical level, it's almost impossible for them to recognize the right opportunity that the universe is now knocking on their doorstep with, saying, Cheryl, here it is. Step into this, and all of a sudden your money problem will now be solved.
I love that. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you for that. Beautiful. I hope if anybody has questions, just type them in. And I haven't been paying attention to that, but I'll check that in a minute. All right, next one. Let's get to it. The environmental issues around us, like especially now, staying inside and the closeness of everyone and everything. Like, what might you say to that?
Well, environment, obviously, right now, it's something we're all working with. And so be clear or get clear on the environment that you can control in a healthy way. In psychology, it's called a locus of control. And when you have a healthy locus of control, what that does, it allows you to recognize the opportunities that are really real for you to be able to embrace or reorganize or massage a little bit, whatever that might be. So the most obvious thing is look at your own environment that you're in charge of, your home, your office space, your creative space, your family space, your relationship space, all these things. And how clean is it? How organized is it? Now, not from an obsessive point of view, just is your environment nurturing you? Is your environment, so some of you have a backyard, for example, you can go out in your backyard and in the cities where the sun is shining like it is here in Vegas right now, go out in your backyard for 20 minutes. You don't need to spend the whole day out there. You might get a sunburn. But to spend 20 or 30 minutes, this could be really, really healthy. It could be beneficial. It could be nurturing for you. That's your environment. Then beyond that, you want to recognize the environment that we share with others.
Right.
And this is where it's just simply important to basically follow the guidelines that we've been given, because the guidelines that we're giving are the guidelines for all of us, as in that 6-foot rule, wearing a mask where it's appropriate, that type of thing. It's all just a good thing for us to be doing until such time that we truly have flattened the curve, so to speak. And then the mask can come off, and next thing you know, we're getting closer again to people. And more specifically, it's the people that we don't know. So obviously your family members, you're not always going to practice the 6-foot rule with them, right? Or your dearest friends, right? Again, you want to be mindful of this, obviously, but all of those rules in terms of our, we'll just say the outer environment, the environment where the public is, or people that we don't know. it's important to practice all of that, or
I love that.
continue to practice all of that.
I think we're going to have many, many more conversations about that. I know Saturday Vegas is opening up its retail and salons and things like that slowly. So it just is like, feels like Christmas on almost like we get to go out and do a little something.
Well, I welcome that conversation because I am in the know of some of what's going on inside Vegas with some of the greatest leaders that reside here in Vegas on a strategic level, also obviously an intuitive and psychic or energetic level as well. But there's some really awesome things going on that we most certainly could be talking about and sharing with people as a way to help them possibly calm down.
Oh, okay.
Again, that's a master key here. Any of my students that have learned how to do this and are choosing to do this on a regular basis, they often say they feel like they're the lucky ones because they look out into their circles, like with their friends that don't even have access to these types of teachings, and they're not calm. They're kind of freaking out, or they're being too aggressive, or they're showing up recklessly, or whatever.
Yeah.
But they don't realize that it's not helping them. It's not helping them and their families by doing this, versus those that are recognizing that significance of just really, and if you don't know how to do this, again, find somebody that can teach you how to calm down. Calming down is my number one thing right now. Calming down and staying calm, because when you're in that state of calm, that's when you can really access. That's when you can really connect.
Yeah. We can end on that. Just calm down, everybody.
Just
come on. Hang out with us and calm down. All right, next one, occupational. So kind of more of what you said, like we're getting ready to go back to work maybe, or, maybe.
Well, we are.
Somebody said to me, if what you were doing 45 or 50 days ago was good and you were making money and you felt good, like keep doing that. If it wasn't, maybe it's time to reconsider,
Reconsider possibly something new, because there is a breaking open, so to speak, on a spiritual level right now that's happening. And this will continue for at least the next year or two, quite frankly. And so what that means is for those of us that maybe were doing something that's kind of doing something prior to COVID-19 that clearly had expired or was outdated, then that's coming into people's awareness. Now, it could be coming into awareness in a more painful way because they're desperately trying to hang on to whatever that is, like we sometimes see people do. But if, in fact, there's any truth to what I just said, then you're being asked by that of your own soul. You're being asked by that of your own spirit, your own higher self, if you will, or the divine or the universe, to at least begin the process of reconsidering something new. The other thing that I think is very key in this area.
Let's go real quick because we have 3 more and I want to get to all of them.
Okay, yeah. And that is, our work is very important to us. Our work is something that's very significant to us. And so this is not a time to be treating this as a holiday. This is not a time to be thinking, oh gosh, I got time off, I'm on unemployment right now, they're paying me more than what I normally make. So I'm just going to sit back and smoke a bunch of joints and drink a lot of beer and eat a lot of pizza. And literally
watch your TikTok and Instagram and all that other stuff.
It's a strategy, and I get it. I would just say it's not the best strategy, because when you really understand what's happening here, and more specifically, when you understand this part of you, then you'll see that that's not the best strategy. There's a much better strategy that you could be engaging in right now that down the way will serve you impeccably well. That's
beautiful. And let's move that right into physical wellness. So getting off the social media, getting outside. What are you doing right now?
Yeah, physical. It's really important. Of course, physical exercise is right up at the top of the list there. Whether that's cycling in your neighborhood, or maybe you're out jogging or walking with your family, or maybe you're on the floor doing push-ups, because obviously a lot of us, we don't go to the fitness centers anymore, at least during this period. So get on the floor, do some push-ups, do some leg raises, do some yoga. Now, of course, there's a lot of yoga studios that are doing their own webcasts online for their yoga students, which I think is absolutely awesome, because it keeps everybody at least physically moving in a way that's really safe. But beyond that, you need a couple other things. Be aware of what you're choosing to put in your body. This is so incredibly important. If you're putting too many carbs in your body right now, this ultimately is not going to serve you. Down the way, it's going to plug you up. It's going to jam you up, not just on a physical level, but on an energetic level, on a financial level. You want to be putting lighter foods in your body. I'm not saying you should never have a pizza or have a steak and so on and so forth. That's not the message here. Just be aware of what you're putting in your body and how it's translating into your own energy level on a physical basis. The next element make sure you get good sleep.
Yes.
Get to bed earlier.
All right.
Earlier is always better right now because there's a lot going on within us. And when we go to sleep at night, especially for those of us that are capable or are able to have a better sleep, there's a lot of things that can happen in our sleep state. Another conversation for another time, perhaps. But that's why it's so important to get good sleep. Of course, the other reason, it just physically recharges you. It recharges your brain.
Yeah.
You become better the following morning, upon awakening.
I love that. And social wellness. Friends, family.
Social has to do with social has to do with connection. It has to do with connection. So, this is not a time to be disconnecting from people, especially people that we genuinely care about. These are our loved ones, or maybe our dearest friends, or our teacher, or our coach, or our mentor, whoever that is in our life, our pets even. This is not the time to be disconnecting. Rather, this is the time to be connecting in a way like we've never connected before. And sometimes the connection could be over the telephone, right? Just calling somebody, or via Skype, or do a Zoom call. I'm hearing more and more people talking about they're getting together with their dear friend tonight on a Zoom call, and they're going to have a glass of wine together and have some chuckles and laughs and whatever. Connect. The other piece is support. It's so important. I've already alluded to this a couple of times. Support right now needs to be paramount, in my view. And more specifically, a support system that's designed to elevate you. It's designed to help you to connect on a deeper level. It's designed to empower you. It's designed to help you stay a little calmer, to stay a little more relaxed. This is where your creativity can really flow through. This is where you're going to make better choices as whatever you're confronting in terms of challenges in your own life. You're going to make better choices as you're going through those challenging times or those difficult moments by really learning how to do this. But in order to do this, this is where it's critically important, in my view. Actually, it always has been. But now it's not just significantly important, now it's become critically important to be able to have a really healthy, ongoing, positive support system in place. If you don't have one, just literally create that intention within inside yourself to find the right support system. I promise you, it will come. It's out there. It's available. And you genuinely have a need for it. You'll be deeply enriched just because you now have a super supportive or the right kind of support system in place for you in your life personally and professionally.
That's beautiful. And don't you feel like we've come full circle? Like at the beginning, we talked about, when you took your deep breaths with Ernie and Randy, yes, and your support system that you had all those years and how that showed up in your life. And I think that, again, the more we practice this, the better we're going to get at it. So it's not the Pollyanna joy that you talked about. It's the ongoing, sustained joy. We can have a whole nother conversation on that, I'm sure. But the last one is our spiritual conversation, which is what I brought you here today for. So we have a good solid 10 minutes left to really dive deep into this. But you tapped a little bit into what I was going to ask you about, like, what's up with the world? What's going on in Las Vegas? What's going on in our communities? Like, what do we have to look forward to in the COVID-19? And how does our spiritual transformation showing up different in 2020 than it has been in the past?
Well, we have a lot to look forward to in light of what's coming for us. So, I do a weekly support call for a large group of people every Tuesday. And one of the things that I've been putting out to everybody on these calls is that liberation is coming. Freedom is coming. Change is coming. And when I say change, I mean the type of change where you're going to notice something in your life at some later point that's going to be new and different and positive and vibrant and radiant. It's all in the ethers right now, so to speak, spiritually speaking. It's all here. It's in its own process of manifesting. So what does that mean? Well, for many of us, we've got some work to do. We've got some things that we've got to be looking at inside of ourselves. So when I think spiritually, on a spiritual level, right, spirituality has to do with, how in touch are you with your greatest purpose, not your lowest purpose. And there is a lower purpose. How in touch with you are with your greater reason for even having a life, not just your lower reason for having a life. How in touch are you with something that really matters, as in your values. How important are those values to you, and how do you live your life in current time in relationship to those values that are most important to you? Or have you been possibly living more unconsciously than consciously? Or, as I also say, maybe you've been living more on automatic, which basically means you just repeat the same thing today that you pretty much did yesterday. And it's just a repeat, and it goes on and on and on. And over time, this becomes a more unfulfilling life versus the person that's constantly changing it up, the person who's constantly leveling it up in whatever way that's truly right for them at soul level in their lives, personally and professionally. This person is deepening their relationship to that of their own spirituality. Spirituality is they're connecting with their spirit, not just their mind, not just their ego, not just their personality, not just their emotions. They're now connecting to a greater part of themselves. And that greater part of themselves is the part that's connected to the universe. It's connected to God. It's connected to the greater spirit. You see, this is so critically important again. Now, it's always been important, but it's becoming even more critically important because we as a race, we as a people are to be at a certain place. And this certain place is where this liberation exists, where we are to be living our lives more more liberated, instead of this idea of living in such confinement, in living in like a self-imposed prison, in living in like limitation. And you know who I'm talking about. You know, I could be talking to you right now. This is resonating with you, and you're like, whoa, he's like, how does he know this about me? How does he know this is the exact way I've been living my life? I'm like, I feel like I'm so limited. I feel like I'm boxed in. I feel like I'm snagged. I feel like I'm stuck. I feel like I've got both feet on the brake pedal of my own automobile of my own life. Just repeating again, living on automatic. Well, for all of us, this is something that's coming. This liberation, this change, this new way of living our lives. I often refer to it. In fact, I have a whole series that I've created. I started creating this series back in 2018 because I knew it was coming back then. And I call it the Living Authentically series, which really, the core message through this entire seminar series or this course online series is this, is where are you at with truly living your life authentically right now? Where are you at? Another way to ask the exact same question, just approaching it from a different perspective, is where are you at right now in living your life inauthentically? Do you have a relationship that you're currently in with somebody that just the other day you said, this is the most inauthentic relationship I think I've ever been a part of? Or do you have a business practice that you've been engaged in for the last number of years, and just the other day you were having a conversation with one of your partners and saying, this practice doesn't work. And why do we keep on doing this thing? All we're doing is wasting a lot of money and time and energy. It doesn't work, meaning it's inauthentic. And so this is something that we're all being challenged with on purpose right now. Now, this would be the higher purpose of the challenge because we're kind of being cracked open spiritually. In other words, we're being cracked open by our own higher selves. We're being cracked open by this higher aspect of ourselves, as in soul. And the reason we're being cracked open, because our soul wants us to see this now. It wants to see the parts of our life where we've been living it inauthentically. If, say, for example, I've let my addictive behavior spin out of control, there's no authenticity in that. In fact, if anything, I've squeezed the authenticity out of that. Now, here's the cool thing. I can get the authenticity back. And especially now, because we're all being supported on it from a much higher perspective, because there's something much bigger that's going on. In other words, it's not just the virus. It's not just what's going on with the economy, even those two, as you can probably see, are very connected right now, right? But there's something else that's bigger than any of that. And I'm not talking about on a negative perspective. I'm talking about a positive perspective. I'm talking about a higher perspective. There's something much bigger that's going on, even though many cannot see that right now, partly because they're swallowed up, they're snagged, they're snafu'd on this day-to-day thing that's happening that seems to be where there's like promotion of fear, more panic, another reason why I say to people, stay away from the news channel. And if you are going to watch the news, 20 minutes a day, that's it. Max 20 minutes a day. I promise you, if you do this, you're going to get to the point where you're not going to want to do the 20 minutes a day. You're going to get to the point where you're going to bring it down to 10 minutes a day. Then you're going to get it to the point where you don't even want to watch them on TV anymore. You're going to want to listen to it or read it on your, on your website or on your telephone, when you're checking online, getting caught up on the basics of what's going on right now. Why? Because most of that is fear mongering. It's designed to promote fear. It's designed to promote panic among the people, which another way of saying the same thing, it's literally designed to keep us away from what it is that's coming. The bigger, the brighter, the better that's truly coming. That's what is designed to keep us away from or keep us disconnected from. That's why a lot of these things that we've spoken about here today, Cheryl, they're all not just spiritual. They're all not just powerful. They're
right.
equally practical.
Yes.
Any of these ideas that we've spoken about here today. And this is really, something, this is a significant part of who I am, even as a teacher, as a transformational teacher on the planet, is yes, anybody knows me really well. They often refer to me as the most spiritually developed person they've ever come across. Exactly. But with the same breath, I'll also say, you're also equal to that, the most practical person I think I've ever come across as well. You're like this blend of spirituality and practicality that literally shows itself every single time you're in front of somebody. Well, if you were to track me and see the way I live my life, this is how I live my life. It's this balance of knowing what's really coming and then recognizing what it is that we're navigating through right now. And we are navigating. Every one of us. I'm navigating. You're navigating. Everybody's navigating. The deeper question would be this: how skilled are you at navigating?
Right.
And more specifically, how skilled are you at navigating the great winds of change that have now come upon us?
Nice. Good question.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Yeah.
We all need to stop and really reflect on that and take a class from you, of course. So let's end on this joy thing. You talked about there's a lot of promotion in the world. So we're promoting joy. I think that a lot of people have kind of hidden or been kind of, been overlooked, and that their joy isn't really, they're not living their joy and they're not living their potential. So if somebody were stuck and not showing up every day and just caught up in the busyness of life, what would you say to them? Just a minute or two, and then we're going to wrap up with your website and your classes that are coming up.
If somebody is stuck, the most important thing they can do in current time is get to what's causing them to be stuck.
Yeah.
They need to become conscious, aware, because without that awareness, they're going to remain stuck. And not only are they going to remain stuck, the stuck will continue to grow. This is another misunderstood topic, big time.
Yes.
That just because I'm stuck, it looks like I'm now sitting idle. But in the universe, nothing can sit idle. It's either moving forward or it's moving backward. It's either moving upward or it's moving downward.
Interesting.
Nobody can make it sit idle. You can't, I can't, we can't. Nobody can. It's an impossibility. This is governed by a universal law. And so when somebody's stuck, the most important thing that they could possibly do for themselves is to identify what it is that's causing them to be stuck. Because here's what I know that I know, because I've been down this road many times with thousands of people now throughout the years, is when we're stuck, there's a reason for being stuck. And not only is there a reason, it's not even the higher reason, it's a lower reason. That's why in my teachings, I break it down on a real practical level. There's a higher purpose and there's a lower purpose to everything.
Yes.
And so when somebody's stuck, the first place you've got to go is to identify the lower reason. There is a lower reason. It's going on from within us. It's going to have something to do with that emotional dimension that we alluded to earlier on in our time together here today, in conjunction possibly with a few other things. But whatever it is, you've got to be able to recognize what that is. Then the next step to that is, how are you going to work with it?
Yeah.
Because here's the deal, is if you don't recognize it, therefore you're not working with it properly, then not only do you stay stuck, but you temporarily keep yourself disconnected
Yep.
from the higher rung, the
Oh.
higher reason, the higher purpose. So if the higher purpose is to have more joy in your life, you keep yourself disconnected from having that higher purpose become embodied in your life.
Beautiful, beautifully said. All right, what is the class coming up? What's your website? And any one last remark?
Okay.
Is that it?
So,
For your
yeah.
website? Yep, I'll put that in the
So-
chat. Mhm.
Yes, please do. So the website, of course, is dalehalaway.com. And you spell the last name HALAWAY.com, dalehalaway.com. And one of the things that we do and have been doing for some time now that seems to be a really big hit, especially right now, is what we call our monthly telecast. It's like a webinar, and but it's like a mini seminar online that anybody from around the world can access every single month. It's approximately 4 to 5 hours long. I say approximately 5 hours long because we, at the end of it, we do Q&A, and I'll maybe do a little coaching for people, that type of thing as well. But it's 4 hours of solid teaching. But what's very unique about these monthly telecasts is because of one of my abilities, I'm able to dial into what I call a tone or tonalities or a theme of what's actually going on in current time. So for example, I already know what the theme is for May. Now our next telecast, monthly telecast that is going to be on May 30th. So I already know what the theme is. And so I've now developed the program. And so, and then I'll tweak it between now and May 30th. And on May 30th, we go live. Saturday morning, May 30th, 9:30 sharp Pacific Standard Time for a solid 4 hours, possibly as much as 5 hours. And it is powerful. It is inspiring. It helps people to recenter again in relation to themselves. It helps people to restabilize. It helps people to calm down. It educates people from a higher perspective, is what I refer to as higher education. It helps to elevate them in their own consciousness so they can see things that they're really to be looking at soul level, from that of their soul. In other words, their soul wants them to see something in their own world, whatever that might be. And then lastly, it empowers them. It empowers them in the best of ways, where when we're done with the live broadcast, the people that have attended, they're just like blown away, so much so they don't even want to get off the call. They're hoping that the call goes on a little longer because of the way it feeds them, because of the way it empowers them in their own personal, professional, or entrepreneurial lives. And so, and then lastly, to the monthly telecast, we do something that's also rather unique. If by chance you have to miss part of the broadcast, we've always got everybody covered because we record the entire broadcast. And a couple days after the live broadcast for that particular month, we give, it's all included in the registration, a replay of the broadcast for 4 full days. They get free access. And then the other thing that we do, they're super affordable. They're like $67, where normally in any other time, this would be at least $100. At least $100, just because of the value, the significance, the power, just what people gain from this experience on these monthly telecasts. But what we do is we have what we call a discount code. So if you go to the website, dalehalaway.com/telecast, TELECAST, telecast. You go to the website, and somewhere on that website there will be a code. I believe it says May 30 or 30 May, one or the other. Whatever that is, you just go ahead and make sure you make a note of that code. So when you get into the shopping cart, bottom line is you'll get an extra $30 off. But that's a limited time. That's like what we call our early bird discount for all of the people that are learning about this perhaps for the first time. So we make it super easy for them on a financial level. Because bottom line is this is for anybody and everybody, and as many people that want to join us, we're here to serve and to assist them in the ways that I just mentioned.
All right, Dale, anything else you'd like to add? Thank you for sharing all that. I appreciate it. We're over our time just a little bit, but if you have anything else, I'd be happy to take it.
I want to congratulate you.
Thank you.
On your own victory and victories.
My launch is May 30th. I hope you can come.
Yes, I Well, yeah, I would love to, but no, and like I alluded to earlier on, I see the change
Thank you.
that you've experienced and embodied from literally the last time we were together, which was a few months back.
Yeah.
And that I congratulate you for, because that requires some work, that requires some practice, that requires really consciously choosing and a whole lot of other things. And the bottom line is, in my world, that's a victory. And whenever I see a victory, I always am thrilled to acknowledge whoever that is that has achieved that level of victory, and that today being you.
Oh, I appreciate you very much. Thank you for your time today. And we'll be back again with more in our studio next time. But for now, Cheryl and Dale Halaway signing out. Take care.